The very first thing you need to do to create a solid brand strategy for your brand as a business or a creator is to learn about it. This is the same exact step-by-step process that I followed to figure out brands like Chillhop Music, VideoAsk, or Aulart. Following these steps to research the brand will put you in a solid position to start defining a strategy for it. You'll agree with me that in life, to understand the world around you, you first need to understand yourself. Brands are like people. So I follow the same exact journey to understand any brand, from the core to its surroundings. Let's start with the company, obviously, the entity.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi. And so to understand the company, what I do usually is I start with a documentation analysis. You want to have on documents your business plan. It doesn't matter if it's like a 5-year plan or like a 1-year plan. If you're someone that's just getting started, you probably have on like a sheet notebook, like a 30, 60, 90 day plan. Use that, okay? Then a touchpoints audit. What I like to do with this, I like to map every single interaction that's live online. If you have a shop, just add it on the shop too. So you can have in real life and online. And usually I like to break this down into like product and communication. And so we have this massive map of all the things that are live right now. Why? Because people will have a perception of your brand based on all of these interactions or some of these interactions. And then it's good to know what's live, because most of the time, and I've seen this every single time I've worked with a company, they'll have stuff online that they don't even remember, right? And they're like, oh my God, we still have this landing page online. Like, oh my God, like that's shit. We need to get rid of it. So all these things, it's important to keep them, on a map. It's gonna look messy. It's gonna look something like that. This is what we did for Chillhop. You can't even read here of the amount of things that that you have on as a company. Stakeholder interviews. Don't get me wrong. Don't think C-level executives, CEO, founder. It's stakeholder. I mean everyone that has an impact on the brand. I know the word here can be misleading, but I do it in purpose. Why? Because they are gonna have different perspectives. And the person who just joined might have a lot of expectations, like might be fresh, might have a totally different perception of what this brand is, what this company is than the founder, okay? So that's very important to keep in mind. When I'm doing stakeholder interviews, I try to keep it to like, let's say 5 to 6. Don't come with like 20 stakeholder interviews. That's like madness. Try to find like 6 to 8 stakeholder interviews, something or 5, something you can manage, and look for diversity. So what I'll do is I'll try to get diversity on seniority. So from the junior to the CEO, diversity. I'll try to get diversity, as I said, on antiquity. So how long have you been in this company? And I'll try to get diversity on skills or departments, from the HR person to the product person or marketer, right? Like try to get like a diverse group. And then what I like to do after this is a team workshop. And the team workshop is very fancy and very visual, and like you take pictures, you put it on a case study. But what's very cool about it is that the things that they'll tell you on like a one-on-one interview are sometimes very different, that at least in the delivery of the ways that they'll tell you on a team workshop. And so when these things come up, because if you've done the stakeholders interviews before, now they know that so they kind of feel forced to say it on a group setup, and maybe those are things that like they've never served before. So if you have like a group of like 15 people, to me a good group is somewhere between like 12 to 20 people. It really depends, obviously, if your business is you have like 6, 7 employees, or your creator, you have like an editor that's like freelance and like collaborates with you sometimes. Just do it like the 3 people is enough. If that's the case, at least then try to get someone to facilitate it, so you're not the one just like putting the ideas and facilitating the workshop. You'll be surprised of the amount of things that people understand in different ways, even though they are supposed to be very obvious for everyone. And I'm talking about like things like the company values, where like there's a landing page with all the values, and there's a, you know, Notion page and like whatnot. And then you'll be like, can you write on this post-it the company values? Everyone will have different post-it. For I can guarantee.
Like when you work in the culture aspect for a company, do you think it's important for a whole organization to kind of work under one guiding principle? Because like I'm a strong believer that like how well a business is understood externally depends on how well it's understood internally. Like a strong brand is an inside-out approach.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
This is, again, building on my same idea. Brands are like people. The more you know yourself, the more you know the world around you. Self-awareness is very important, and I feel like that's the same thing for businesses. The better you understand the business in a way that is aligned and shared with every employee, that's the challenge, because the founder will understand the business. They'll have their own idea, and the marketing person will have their own idea. And I think that's going to be pretty clear for like everyone, but in their own individuality, right? I think the challenge for brands is to have one narrative that everyone can replicate.
Do you have any tips or any things you would do when you are trying to, I guess, help a company align their goals and values and brand?
Just repetition, man. Just like repeat it until you die. So the less things, the better. And the more you can repeat it, the better too. So sometimes like you'll say something 5 times and you're like, I don't want to be annoying, I said this too many times. But you'll be surprised how little attention people pay to what we have to say. So I found that one of the things that has been very successful for me in like building brands and like even like my career is keep repeating the same thing over and over and over. So you see how in the last episode I said people, brands are like people. Now I just dropped it again. I'll say this in every single episode because I'll just never stop saying this, because that's my main like point of view about branding. And then one thing that more like pragmatic, and that's a little hack, if you will, when it comes to like company culture and company values, is there's this tool called Bonusly. It's some sort of like peer-to-peer incentivization tool, like with microtransactions. So they'll make up a coin. That has nothing to do with Web3, by the way. But so they'll make up a coin, and so you within employees you can like praise people and like reward people with microtransactions. At Typeform we were using it. Like I still know every single company value at Typeform because I was like doing this every week a few times. Just rewarding you because of this, because you were like embodying this value. And hashtag work together. Hashtag passion, whatever, right? And the last thing I'll say, just have very few elements that people need to remember. So probably the company values is something that you want people to remember, but also just the company vision or just the value proposition. Just don't put more stuff, because in general, when you do brand strategy, we tend to create like this massive architecture of different elements that is very good for marketers and writers and like design people to do their job, but it becomes a hot mess for a single like human working on the company to retain that information. So just give them one sentence, repeat that sentence over and over and over every week, every day, and every meeting, and that's how you do it. That's how I do it.
So less is more, repetition, and incentivize it.
Yeah.
Perfect. No, thank you.
Now we move to community. So we're like expanding the circle. So we go from the core company to community. So all the relationships you're building with your customers, obviously, the people who are interested in your stuff, the people who watch your content, you're expanding the circle. And so the first thing I'll do is audience research. And this sounds very technical, but could literally be just me with a coffee, 9 a.m., just going to see their profiles or like just hanging, like just looking at what people have to say. There's a good friend that I've been working with for many years, works at a big tech company. They are using SparkToro. And he's obsessed with it. I have never used it before, so I cannot recommend it. But I want to still like share it with you here, because apparently with this tool, what you can do is look for keywords and see who is having this type of conversations, and then what are they doing. So it's very useful, one, to find partners, and two, to understand like their journeys and their flows, and potentially see where you can advertise in the future and things like that. User interviews. I know there's people who are like proficient at that. I'm not, okay? I'm not, like, I do my best. I'll sit down with the user and just talk and let them like explain what they think about the product. Also, you'll be surprised how very little companies do that. And this is a major difference between creator companies or creator entrepreneurs and the rest of the universe. The creator entrepreneurs will talk with their users because it's their audience, they're on social media, they're watching every single comment. That's invaluable. That's why a lot of creators do the great things that they do, because they talk with their customers, their audience, their community. User interviews. I'll just sit there for like 30 minutes and ask them things like, why do you buy this product? Like, what do you think about this brand? Like, can you describe it like to me or to a friend? Stuff like that. Very basic stuff. And if you know how to do this better, please let me know in the comments below and we'll have a chat, because I would love to learn more about this topic. Partner interviews, the same thing, but now you're thinking about other brands. If you've done a campaign before, or if you have collaborated with with like a creator that's done illustrations for you, or a creator that's done video for you, it's a great chance to like jump on a call and ask them a few questions, and it's very valuable. And then obviously social media comments. For creators, that's like a given, but for other brands too, like if you have content on social media, it's insane the amount of like intel that is on the comments. They'll tell you everything. They'll tell you what they want to know, what's not clear, and even how to talk about your product or service. For Chillhop, for example, obviously they're a creator brand, so I had to do it, but I would do it for any other brand too. And with Chillhop, like what I did is like sit down for like 3 hours, and for the last 3-4 videos that they had published, go through all the comments. What I did is just literally Command F, find, and then type whatever words I was seeing, and like it will highlight the words on every single comment. I would literally like screenshot every comment, and then what I did on Miro was like separate all these comments in themes. Now I have this board of whatever fuck people are thinking about your product, whatever fuck people are thinking about the brand. In this case, they have like a little mascot that represents the brand. So now I know what words people are associating with that mascot and stuff like that, and it's invaluable. So really recommend you do that. And the last thing that we'll do is surveys. For some companies, I'll run surveys too. If they have like a massive audience, you can run a survey, because then you get quantitative data and not just qualitative data. And that I did this for Chillhop. We run into like 300 people or something like that. And it was very interesting, because actually that survey gave us a lot of insights into how people perceived us and the words they used to describe us. Let's talk about competition. Researching competitors, it's just not my style in general. Also in life, like I don't really look at what other people are doing more than just to understand the context. I don't get obsessed with like, oh, like, you know, like they're doing this, so let me try this. Like I'll understand the space where I am and just focus on what I'm doing and like the people I'm serving. So in general, when I work with brands, I can like apply the same thing. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the way I do it. For competition, what I like to do is keyword research. What are the words that you are using as a company or as a brand in your landing pages, in your social media? How do you talk about yourself? That's what I care about. Like, okay, you're selling, I don't know, socks. Are you the friendly socks? Are you the designy socks? Okay, so that's what I'm trying to figure out here. What labels are you using to describe your product? And then the other thing that I do is like with all the literally desktop research that I do, I'll go and build like some competitor scorecards. And this is very basic, but it's basically just like putting together like the value proposition that I think they're going for, the positioning, the main strengths that I see they have, the weaknesses. Like, so this gives me this very broad picture of what the space looks like and where there might be potentially a gap, and if it makes sense for the brand that we're working on right now to try to own that gap. The culture, it's very simple. Like, I think we all live in a context and we all thrive and build and like establish relationships within a context. So especially when like you're looking at brand strategy or like defining a brand, it's very obvious that the culture will play a role. Going through this might give you in the future some insights on your brand narrative when you're building that. So it's very simple, nothing fancy or special here. I'll go through macro trends, meaning what's going on in the world at a global scale. So for example, blockchain, it's happening for the last few years and it's changing the way we interact online. So the way we connect with other people, the way we buy stuff, the way we market stuff, it's gonna literally change everything that we do online and probably offline. So that to me, I would consider to be a macro trend worth looking into. Even if I'm doing something that has nothing to do with finance, banking, or like freaking NFTs, anything like that, I would look into that. And then micro trends. So basically micro trends would be the same idea but applied to your niche, and it doesn't necessarily need to be related macro with micro, but in this case, in this example, it is.
How do you work with clients' feedback with this framework? Do you apply it, or is it something that it's, instead of doing rounds of feedback, it's something that it's already integrated into the framework? How does it work?
All of this that I actually shared with you, the interviews, the workshop, just blast with everything you can find, right? So there's no feedback. It's like no one's gonna be like, oh, this is wrong. It's like, no, it's not wrong. It's just research. So my approach when I partner with someone, a creator brand, or a small company, or like a business, or like tech company, or something like that, what I'll approach as a observer, right? And I'll approach with my little like Inspector Gadget type of thing. I'll be like, okay, this is what I see here. This is what I see here. This is what I see here. And then after I've done all of this, I'll package all my insights in what I call the insights deck. And so it's basically like all the information that I found on these sessions. It's just like, distributed in a way so you can be delivered. I'm happy to do a session about this. If it's interesting to you, let me know in the comments and we can do a session for that.
It's definitely, it helps to have a direction, and now it's so much easier as well because we have the internet. I think if I imagine 10 years ago, no idea what to do, just have to talk to the right people. Especially for me being in Brunei, I'm only lucky, like I met you on Instagram. I wouldn't have been able to have this conversation if I didn't have social media. So I think having this approach and everything, it helps you to sort of identify who you are, what do you stand for, and it's as a building block to sort of discover and reinvent yourself along the way.
Does this approach that we've been talking about apply to creators?
I think the formality is kind of different as a creator. I think you could have more of an informal structure, and I think you could actually probably take a more organic approach in some of them and be a lot more multi-directional, as you go along, and you could iterate a lot quicker.
Love it, because this removes a lot of pressure and like stress from the whole process, which is kind of like the whole point. When you're doing something like that at a big scale, you need process, but if it's you and like a couple more people, it's good to have, a guide like Ida, you were saying, but don't take it too rigidly or don't take it too seriously. It's supposed to help you, not the other way around. I think that's a great way to finish. All right, I know that was a lot, but as usual, I'll let you now pick the topic of the next session. Scan this QR code right here and you'll see 5 different themes. Pick the one that you're more interested in and that'll be the topic of the next session. If the session is already out, you can click here to watch it. And let me tell you one thing. Did you know that you can actually communicate with the YouTube algorithm if you like this content by clicking the like hand to let it know that you want more of it? And I'll say more. If you're not subscribed to this channel and you click subscribe, there's big chances that I'll pop up more on your Explore page, which might be good for you, definitely good for me. So support if you want to support. And if not, I'm surprised that you made it so far. So anyways, I'll see you in the next episode.